Get started on comments today. Let me just say this. We are scheduled to be in Cape Girardeau and St. Louis today, so we're going to take a few questions afterwards. Kelly will run that, I think 4 or 5 questions we'll try to take. So just wanted to give you a little heads up about that. We're kind of on a schedule today to be able to get around the state. First of all, I want to thank all the people that were here today for the roundtable discussion we had on violent crime. What we talked about today and what I had an opportunity to meet with the police officers before this event was simply to deal with the violent crime and what's happening in the state. As you see, the homicide rates in our state continue to grow. It is, to me, a critical time for us that we must give law enforcement all the tools possible, prosecutors all the tools possible to fight violent crime. It is why I called a special session, and to limit that special session dealing with violent crime issues. And since the first of the year, between St. Louis City and Kansas City, there's been over 235 homicides in the state of Missouri. Those numbers are both very high numbers, are some of the highest numbers we've ever seen. So we want to be able to do everything we can to give those officers and prosecutors around the state the tools need to do this. Most of the legislation that we're talking about for special session was in session last year. It just didn't make it across the finish line, simply because of the way the session was. So, and I also want to thank the chief, all the people that's up here today, law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges was at the round table today. And I want to thank the men and women out there keeping our communities safe every day, and the law enforcement officers that are out there. The provisions in the special session, there's basically about 6 of them at this point. And let me just go over a few of them real quickly, briefly. Most of them you've heard before. The main provision, I think, that is the most important provision in special session is the Witness Protection Program, of how we utilize that in the state of Missouri. We worked with the different mayors across the state early on. We met with the African American community, some of the outreach groups, prosecutors, and felt like this would be a game changer to be able to get this legislation passed, to be able to get the funding to support it, and to make sure that the witnesses would come forward in violent criminal cases. I think that's one of the most important provisions we'll be doing. We'll also be looking at things as juvenile certification. This proposal would require the courts to determine if a juvenile should be certified as an adult for the offense of unlawful use of a weapon and armed criminal action. Again, both violent crimes to be able to do that. And again, this entire special session will be tailored strictly to violent crime. The other thing we have is the unlawful transferable weapon. This is not a new law on the books. We're basically taking it from a misdemeanor to a felony. And what this says, this proposal would increase the penalties for a person who knowingly sells or delivers any firearms to a child less than 18 years without the consent of the child's parent or guardian. What you're seeing is violent criminals using kids to commit crimes and giving them the weapons so those felons and so those violent criminals don't get caught with a weapon. We have to address that issue because that's happening all across the state. 2 weeks ago, I was in Kansas City, and I met with Tyler's family, the young man that got shot up there in Kansas City. He was in critical condition when I was there. I talked to his mom and dad, his grandparents, sister. Before that, there was an officer got shot trying to do his duties, simply trying to protect citizens on a bus. Before that, a young kid, legend, shot and killed. Before that, another young child in St. Louis, shot and killed in their homes. Other kids being shot and killed on the streets. If Missouri has to address these issues cannot continue for our state. Whether they may look like they're in St. Louis and Kansas City, they affect the entire state. And Columbia well knows what that's like. Springfield, Missouri knows what that's like. No matter where you live, it has an effect on us. That's why this special session is so important and why it doesn't need to be delayed. As you see, people out here every day are risking their lives for all of us. These officers are. There's a lot of issues to be discussed down the road. But right now, we have to address violent crime in the state, and that's homicides. Those are violent criminals out there have to come off the streets, and we've got to do everything we can and give law enforcement the resources